Howdy and welcome to our Stoke preview. Let's get started. We've got Greg here from Squawka. Howson and Matt are with us on Skype or some other kind of video chat platform. There are others available, probably. What should we talk about? Let's start with Ibrahimovic. He has scored 6 goals in his 10 games for Manchester United so far. Greg, can he keep it up?
Yeah.
All season long?
At this rate, yeah. Which is kind of the question you asked. And let's go for it. But yeah, I think take Rooney out of the team and he's dropping into that hole. He's kind of playing as the target man, the centre forward. Everything all at once, like that 9.5 that Van Persie used to say he was. But Ibrahimovic isn't just like 6 foot. He's 6'5". He's massive as well.
Yeah.
So he's clearly giving Premier League defenders a run for their money. And I think as the team click more, become more fluid, you only see more out of him really.
Okay, Howson, Ibrahimovic is playing a lot. So if he plays 40 games this season, we're in lots of competitions, that would be 24 goals. Would you take that at the end of the season?
Yeah, when was the last time we had a striker that got more than 20 goals? I can't think off the top of my head when that was. Was it Robin Van Persie?
Van Persie?
Yeah, I think it probably was Van Persie. So yeah, I'd absolutely take that from Ibrahimovic. I had fairly low expectations of what was going to happen with him. As he signed, I was like, this isn't a 50 games a season player for us. This is a guy that's going to come in and do a job. But he's been first choice, and it looks like Mourinho, with the holidays that he's giving him, stuff like that, he's managing him to maintain his longevity. And the guy looks like he's in phenomenal shape. He doesn't rely on speed, so he's not going to lose speed. He relies on his physicality, which he's not going to lose. If anything, that's going to improve with age and stuff. So much like Teddy Sheringham, 36, 37 years of age, you're going to see a player that's as effective now as he is 2-3 years ago. There's going to be very little difference, and I'm sure Greg can tell us, because there's a point comes in a striker's career where there's a drop-off of goals and they never regain it, do they? Zlatan's not at the drop-off point yet. He's still scoring with good regularity, so I think he's got at least another season in him after this season. And who knows on the back of that? It depends what's around him. If you surround him by fast, speedy players like Martial, Memphis, Rashford, and you allow him to be more of a conductor sort of player, then you're going to, like Sheringham, very like Sheringham, you're going to see his usefulness for many years to come, I think. And I'm enjoying watching him play at the moment.
Okay, Matt, what do you think? What are you expecting from Ibra? Do you think he can do it all season and in the years to come?
I think, from what we've seen so far, I think he's very likely to continue scoring goals. I mean, he's just been through a little drought, if you could call it that. But what was that, like 2-3 games that he went without scoring? So I think, really, he is our best striker at the moment. I think if he was to pick up an injury, I might have a little bit of concern. But then we've got Rashford, we've got Martial, and I think even if Rooney could improve his game a little bit, we've still got enough goal-scoring options if Ibra was to drop off at any point. But I don't see it happening.
Okay, so everybody's very positive about Zlatan. This is a very casual start to his preview, isn't it? No controversy at all. All right, guys, what would be your teams to play Stoke? Howson, you can go first.
I'm going to go with what we played against Leicester. So, Big Dave in net, Blind, Bay, Smalling and Valencia as my back four. Midfield, I'm going to call it a midfield 3 because I think we just allowed Mata a little bit more freedom to bomb forward. So, Herrera covering and protecting. Pogba and Mata as part of a midfield sort of attacking 2, and then Rashford, Lingard, and the big fella up front.
Okay, Matt, what are you doing?
Exactly the same as Howson by the sounds of it.
It's been an exciting preview so far. Greg.
Throw a spanner in the works, Greg!
3 out of 3, but I mean, just for fun, let's have Fosu Mensah on the field.
Where are you playing him?
Right back, why not?
What about Valencia?
He's been great, but
He's been incredible.
You want me to throw a spanner in the works?
Yes.
It's a great spanner.
While we're here, Valencia, by the way. Should we just say how good he is?
Yeah, very, very
Got nothing
good.
else to talk about, apparently. He's been incredible. He's been sat on the bench for 3 years and then turns up and is amazing.
Yeah, talking of fullbacks, though, Daley Blind.
Yeah,
against
incredible.
Leicester. I mean, I'm always a little bit worried about his pace out there, but he was really good. Really, really good.
Yeah. But
really good.
His pace worries me as a fullback, but he coped with one of the most pacey, tricky wingers in the Premier League in Riyad Mahrez. No danger whatsoever. As long as the guy who's in front of him is prepared to come back and work and the centre-halves are happy days covering, you can make up for lack of pace as a fullback. Daley Blind's distribution and Herrera's energy and distribution, as we saw against Zora, is what was lacking in that team. The tempo just completely falls out of the team when you've not got accurate, good passes of the ball like Daley Blind and Herrera. Their energy tempo and desire to get the ball up the pitch is what makes all the difference. And I think as much as it's just two players, all right, there was more than them two just missing, but Fosu Mensah and Valencia, you can swap them in and out. Very, very similar sort of play that they've both got. Romero didn't have a thing to do, so he might as well have just had the night off as well as usual. So if you look at it, basically it was the same team apart from 2 changes. And those 2 changes made such a massive difference to the atmosphere, the tempo, the feeling of the team and everything. And I think if you put Daley Blind back in there, you put Ander Herrera back in there, this is a Stoke team that is properly struggling at the moment. And I think if you get out and you get an early goal, it could have happened last night. When Rashford rattles the bar, that bar is still shaking, right? I drove past this morning and you could hear it just going, whoa, 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 like that, right? That bar's still giving it some. So if you score an early goal against them, we go on and we absolutely slap them. But the more the game goes on, the easier it is for them to close up shop, make it difficult, and maybe hope for a 0-0 win, which is what I think they was trying to do last night. So you get an early goal, like we saw against Leicester, you go and you absolutely put them to the sword. And I mean, look how many goals they've conceded this season so far, Stoke. Let's just go and
many
slap
goals. All right, thanks, Howson. We will now have a look at our FanDuel Team of the Week. Okay, so fantasy football, it's difficult, and as we've proved so far in the FanDuel League, we're not that great at it. That's absolutely fine though. We're entering the Fan Favourite League this time. There's a winning pot of £6,000. It only costs £5 to enter, and if you use the code DEVILS, you get that money refunded to you if you finish outside of the paying places. If you're over 18 in the UK, then get involved. And also, for anyone that makes a deposit, there's the opportunity to win an Xbox One and a football shirt. So, I mean, that's pretty cool, isn't it? So let's have a look at the team we are playing this week. We've got David De Gea in goal because we want a clean sheet. Ibrahimovic, Rashford all in there. We've got Darren Fletcher, Antonio, Davies at the back. I think we might actually do all right. Any issues with this? I don't think so. I think it's a pretty tidy team. Let us know. Get involved in the FanDuel League. See if you can beat us. Based on our history, that won't be very difficult. But it's getting better, I think. And what a team of the week it is. So let's move on to something I think that might get a little bit of debate. Memphis Depay. Thomas Aribi brought up on Twitter recently, sent Full Time Devils a message saying, guys, still no Depay. Where would Memphis expect to be getting his games this season? Because you'd have thought the Europa League, if he's not playing in the Premier League, he might get a chance. And even then, he didn't even get off the bench when we were looking for a goal. Does Mourinho not trust him? And if he doesn't, and if he can't have this season, is that the end of him?
Yeah, by the looks of it. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think you're right. Mourinho just doesn't trust him. I don't think there is the when he's looking for an option off the bench, he went for Wayne Rooney, and he accidentally made a goal happen by mistake. He scuffed.
I think that's quite cynical.
It is cynical.
That's quite cynical because that was a very well thought out knee.
Oh, of course, yeah. He's a satire of a playmaker now. That's the issue. He's almost like a sitcom footballer. Like he's the incompetence that makes all the talent around him tick in games like against Hull and Zorus. It's very weird. But yeah. If Memphis can't get in against that, then he's not going to get in, is he?
Howson, Memphis Depay. Greg says it's done. What do you think? Is there any hope at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I mean, let's not be so quick to write the guy off. He's been here 14 months.
Well, I don't think Greg is writing him off, but I think he's suggesting.
I'm worried Mourinho's written him off.
Yeah, given that his career has been written off from the inside. Not that Greg is saying get rid of him.
I'd play him.
But just that he can't see.
I actually think Mourinho's a lot more open-minded than we think, unless your name's Bastian Schweinsteiger and you're screwed. But I think everyone who's in that first-team squad, he's actually gone and thought about them being in the first-team squad. And I'd love to ask him what his policy is on players moving between the first-team squad and the 23s and vice versa, because there's players that need games. Morgan Schneiderlin, Darmian, Memphis, Fosu Mensah even, before the Zora game, not really played a lot of minutes. 55 minutes against Northampton was the first time we'd seen him all season. So what's his policy on letting them get minutes in the 23s who are struggling at the moment? So I'd love to know what his idea of it is. If he doesn't trust him enough to play him in the first team, why not play him in the 23s who are absolutely crying out for someone who can score goals, a winger or a striker? They've got neither. So I'd love to see him brought into the 23s, get his confidence up, because I'm sure he's a confidence player. Let him just go and put a load of under-23 sides to the sword, because he's still eligible, technically, for this age group. Let him go and get his confidence up. Let him get the minutes under his belt. And then Mourinho can see with his own eyes how good he is and what he can bring to the team.
He's seeing him every day at training, isn't he? So
that's different, though, isn't it? That's different.
But he's going to make his mind up. Surely he's going to make his mind up to some extent on these players that he's only come to manage this summer from what he sees on a daily basis. So there are people like he's publicly praised Ashley Young for his mindset and said if they were all Ashley Young, we'd be brilliant. But he doesn't play him a lot. But he's obviously seen enough from him to say this guy has got the right attitude. Perhaps he's looking at players like Morgan Schneiderlin, like Darmian, like Memphis Depay and saying, They don't do enough. They're not working hard enough. I don't know. I'm speculating.
I think also from the summer when he said I only want to use specialists, not more functional players, and yet Daley Blind still proved himself. So I think it's not a case of Mourinho's kind of decided before he's come in, you're not going to play for me. Yeah. Maybe he did with Schweinsteiger, I don't know. But I think he obviously opened the door to Blind to prove himself, and maybe that door's been open to other players, and they haven't quite done it.
55 minutes against Northampton is not enough to prove yourself. Don't care who you are.
Who are you talking about?
He needs more minutes. Memphis.
Well, he played against. He played in the first Europa League game, didn't he?
No, I think that was the first time we've seen him.
No, he did.
No, he played against
Feyenoord. He had that shot from about 30
then,
yards that he smashed over the bar on the half volley.
Are you sure he did?
Yep. I bet you. I bet you 6 Kit Kats. It's more than enough Kit Kats, if I'm honest. I couldn't eat 2.
That's more than a big ball.
Either way, a Thursday night in a shit performance against Feyenoord and a Wednesday night in a shit performance against Northampton.
It's not enough time.
It's not enough time to prove yourself. So
but that's what I'm saying.
I think he needs minutes.
Maybe he needs to be doing more on the training field. I don't know. Matt, you haven't said a lot yet. Weigh in.
I think I'm a bit frustrated with the lack of game time that Memphis has been having as well. But then the opportunities that he has had, he hasn't actually done an awful lot. Now, for me, I don't think I'd have written him off so quickly. But it kind of looks like, as Greg was saying, it kind of looks like Mourinho's kind of just written him off already. And I think the same can be said about those other players as well, like Schneiderlin, that he seems to just not be willing to give them games. I mean, last night against Zorya would have been like a perfect opportunity to have played Memphis. Even just bring him on when we were looking for goals. But it was a bit concerning that he just didn't even consider it as an option that would have been viable.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting.
You look at what he did at Chelsea as well. I mean, this is classic Mourinho. He comes into a squad and he will just basically freeze some people out that he just doesn't rate. He did it with guys like Schürrle and stuff like that. I mean, Schürrle
did it to Mata.
He did it to Mata as well. Yeah.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah. So Kevin De Bruyne was different.
But he did it with Mata, but he still played Mata though. He still played him. He was the first guy that always used to come off. He was his little scapegoat substitute, but. Bastian Schweinsteiger one. He's absolutely baffling how he's not giving him an opportunity.
But I suppose
I can't believe he's got no part to play in the squad whatsoever.
It is
I
weird.
refuse to believe that.
I think the dressing room were a bit, I don't think they were fully convinced with Schweinsteiger because I think he wasn't working hard.
There were some Wayne Rooney comments, weren't there, about him. Schweinsteiger was regularly getting flights off to Germany and wasn't perhaps.
So maybe that was a case of Mourinho being.
Have you seen his missus though?
She's a tennis player. Very talented in her field, and good luck to her. Here's a thought for you while we're on this, because we didn't say a lot about anything else, so we might as well talk about it. None of us expect, I would imagine, Matteo Darmian to have much of a Manchester United career beyond this season, because he's clearly not rated, doesn't play him.
Looking good now.
So, do we think the other players? Let's talk about Morgan Schneiderlin and Memphis Depay. Do we maybe even Ashley Young? Do we assume they have careers beyond the summer? Because it's clear that Matteo Darmian isn't going to play. He doesn't want to play him. He doesn't rate him, obviously.
I don't understand that. I would have thought with Shaw being out, he could have done like an Azpilicueta thing.
But that's exactly it. He obviously doesn't like him, does he? No. So because he doesn't play him. So is the same true of these other players that we've mentioned here? Does he just think, no?
Morgan Schneiderlin's a funny one for me though, because he's a bit of a jack of all trades. He's very good. He's a very good footballer. But I mean, if we talk about specialists in Mourinho's system, he's not really as good as Carrick in the holding role. No. He's not. He's not a box-to-box midfielder in the way that Paul Pogba is, and he's not really creative in the way that Herrera is. I kind of think he's just a bit like 6 out of 10 on everything, isn't he? And that's probably.
Do you not think he's better than Fellaini though as an option? Doesn't he do what Fellaini does, but then more on top of that?
I think logic and reason goes out the window when it comes to Fellaini. He just keeps getting games and just somehow making it work. So yeah.
It is interesting. All right, who do we think? Right, okay. So let's just predictions, just for the sake of it. Memphis.
Very Dutch.
Hang on, Sam. We're 10 games into the season, right?
Yeah.
We are going to pick up injuries, right? Sure. That's an absolute fact that we're going to pick up injuries. There's going to be times where players come back a little bit knackered from international duty. You're going to have games start coming thick and fast. This is the time where you start to see. We've already seen it under Mourinho. He came in playing 4-2-3-1, and we've already evolved it into a 4-3-3, right? So if you don't think that the starting 11 is going to evolve even more by the end of the season, then you're off your head. And I think someone like Memphis can force their way to be the impact guy off the bench easily. Not saying that he's going to be a starter, because I think there's better players ahead of him, but I do think he can be an impact player off the bench. I mean, what more do you want when you've got a tired defence? You've got a kid that just wants to run at you all the time. That's perfect. I think Morgan Schneiderlin can get a dozen games in at least this season. I think he's easily good enough for that. And are you telling me that Matteo Darmian, despite that, the fact that he's not first, second, or maybe even third choice as a right back, isn't better than Rojo? Of Come on, mate.
Are you telling me? Hang on, this is the.
I think that's what we're saying. We're just saying Mourinho might not think that.
Are you telling me reason and logic right now should stop this wild speculation on YouTube? We're only having this conversation because nobody had anything to say about Ibrahimovic or very interesting things to say about which team to play. So I needed some kind of conversation. So this is what I'm going for. And as Greg said, we're not saying he can't play. I totally think they can play. We're speculating on how Mourinho is viewing them, not how, as fans, we see their role in the team. We're just predicting.
Why don't you just text Mourinho and ask him?
I don't have his number. He keeps changing it on me. Apparently you can't call him at 4 a.m.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Anyway, let's move on to Stoke. What does anybody know about Stoke? I'm looking at you, Greg.
Well, 5 games into the season. I know we played 6 now, but this is quite a good start.
Yeah.
5 games into the season, only Manchester City was scoring goals at a faster rate than Stoke City were conceding them.
Wow.
And yeah, after it's only West Ham's implosion that has seen West Ham become the team with the worst defensive record in the league. Stoke City haven't won a game in the Premier League this season. They've drawn 2, lost 4. So yeah, they're in dire straits. But they were kind of in the same state last season, and then. Yeah. I don't know if they're just slow starters or what, but it's quite strange. Mark Hughes is getting a little bit of criticism.
Probably a bit of pressure. Probably a little bit of pressure. Howson, Stoke.
This starting 11's awful. It's plain and simple. They've got Boney up front, and Arnautovic has just completely disappeared from the player that we saw last season. They've got no creativity, and they are just. Do you know when they used to be one-dimensional and just hoof it up? Mm-hmm. They was good at that, and they was effective at that. But now they went to being the Stoke Alona. Well, that actually played a little bit of football. They've lost some of the creative players, so now they're a shit long ball team that thinks it's a creative team that can't do neither. So they're in trouble at the moment, and I don't know how they turn that around. Hopefully, it's not against us on Sunday.
Okay, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I much like what the guys have said already, but I think given as well, I've been looking at some of the things that he's been doing, and I think that he's just a shadow of the player that he used to be. Bojan is another player who's kind of just disappeared because I think before he got injured, was it last season or the season before, he was playing quite well for Stoke, but then kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth. And you got some of the players that they've got, like Shaqiri, you'd expect them to be able to create some opportunities, but they just don't seem to.
There's apparently a bit of unrest in the dressing room as well. Mbula's having a bit of a. He's not having a few, but he's kind of settled himself off from the rest of the team. So there's a little bit of a needle there.
Is he a sulky bum? Is that what he's saying? He's being a bit of a sulky bum.
That's what reports would suggest.
They're going to be up for it at Old Trafford, though, aren't they? Suddenly we're going to see them really performing. Right, what do we think the scores will be, Matt?
I'm going to go with 4-0.
Whoa, big score. Howson?
1-0 United.
Craig?
3-1. If Rooney doesn't start.
3-0 to Stoke if Rooney does start. 3-0 United. Let us know what you think, especially about the Memphis Depay stuff, because that was all quite interesting. Although Howson might tell you off for speculating early in the season. That does happen.
You need that, though. You need to have your feet placed in the ground, don't you? You know,
yeah,
have that groundedness.
I think so. Right, thanks very much. We'll see you later.